I want to start posting more of these longer paint with me style videos. I'm really excited about today's card. So I saw on Instagram Douglas Shuler posted his artist prints of the 30th anniversary edition with his original artwork. And I knew I had to get his mountains, which I know is kind of silly. I have so many of these printings of the retro border from like the revised or 4th edition, but I don't think these have ever been printed with the new border style. So I'm really excited about these. I am a little concerned though about how slick these cards feel. I'm not sure how the paint is going to adhere. And I did also notice too that these are much more saturated than just the printings that I have. So here they are, just as an example, if you can see there. So we'll see how this goes. I think what I will do is just a really simple art extension here. And because this is such a slick feeling to it, I'll probably just use a little bit less water for my base layer. I always start with a small filbert brush. In this case, since I'm just doing a very simple art extension, I'm going to go really small. So this is just some carbon black and titanium white that I use for all of my base layers. So I like to keep all of the backings I use so I can reuse them. I kind of want to use a fresh one in this case. Let's see if I can find one. Here we go. So I'm just using a little bit of painter's tape on the back. Yeah, this is definitely really slick. The printing feels a lot different than even some of the other newer printings. So I think I'm going to try to use a little bit less water for my base layer and see if that helps. Curious to see if that might work. Definitely water resistant. I'm not sure if you can see kind of the bubbling that's happening, and the water is definitely, the water in the paint is not finding anything to adhere to. I think Jumpstart was another one that I noticed was really odd when I was painting it, where it's just something about the coating or the whatever it is they did in the printing process. It just makes it a lot harder for paint to stick. So I'll probably have to go over with a few layers, so maybe just going over with a really thin one for this first one just to get something down for the next layers to stick to. See how that goes. Yeah, look at that, it's not even. I know one potential option that some people have done is use an eraser to get rid of that top layer. I'm just so nervous about damaging cards. I know I'm already damaging it by painting it, but doing anything that invasive just makes me a little bit nervous. gonna be slow but steady for this base layer. Now that some of that initial paint is starting to dry, I have something to stick to a bit more, so it's starting to come together. So I'm gonna let this completely dry and then start going back over again. All right, base layer is finally down. It's definitely a lot more of a challenge than most cards, again, with just however these were printed. So I'm gonna go ahead and select my primary colors for this card. I know that in these ones, I definitely use a yellow ochre instead of more of a bright yellow. Since there's just a lot more of an orange hue to this. Of course, I have my black and white already. For a blue, I think I'm gonna go phthalo blue, but I might also switch to ultramarine depending on how these colors mix. For a red, I'm actually gonna use magenta, I think, to start and just see how that works to match. At least on the older printings, I was able to get away with just the magenta and the yellow ochre, but we'll see how that works out. And I might want to incorporate maybe an umber. So maybe I'll try light burnt umber to start. I try to keep my palette pretty minimal, but of course you can always pull from more specialized colors if needed. But I think that should help me get to where I need to be. These colors are definitely a lot more vibrant than I'm used to for these printings. I think there's a lot more orange and reds. That raw umber wouldn't quite be right. There's just a burnt sienna I'll have on hand too, just in case. So I think I'm gonna start just trying to play around with the lightest colors that I can see, and just see, once I start mixing the colors, where I'm at, and if I need to change any of my blues. I think just starting to play around with the paints helps me get a feel for where things are at, since I can't quite define what the color is. Such an odd color in the sky. Am I even close? Oh. I'm gonna always go a little bit lighter than what I need. It's more green than yellow, I'd say. Now that I have a base layer down too, I'm gonna start trying to water down my paints a bit more, especially when it comes to clouds. It's a lot easier to get a more natural look with more watered down paints. So this blue has a lot of purple in it, but then the clouds have a lot of yellow, so they're on opposite sides of the color wheel. So that's gonna be interesting. I'm just starting with really thin layers, or as thin of layers as I can, just to start getting a feel for the colors. So oftentimes you can just tell by eyeballing it what to mix, but sometimes it just takes putting it on the card too and just seeing how it actually mixes. If I look at the other printings, it looks like there's more blue coming in here. So I'm gonna try to include that. I wonder how ultramarine would look instead. I think that might be closer. Might be a little bit too purple. Let's just see what happens. Skies are always the most challenging for me, and partly why I always start with the sky, otherwise I'd probably get discouraged if it was the last thing I had to do. Just because there's so much color melting together, and in this case too, we're going all over the color wheel with all the colors of the sky, where we have reds, greens, and blues. Yeah, I think the phthalo has too much, of a green shade to it, too much yellow to it, so I might go with the ultramarine for the sky. That might be closer. Probably be easier to use a wet palette in this case, since mine are already drying. My paints are already drying. So this is definitely more purple. This is more blue-green. or has more green tones to it. So I think I need to go more green up here. Definitely tone down that purple. So to make something more green, I'm just adding a yellow hue to it. you.